I retired on a Friday in June. I was 65 years old. I'd been working for the same company for 42 years. They gave me a plaque, a cake and a watch I never wore. On Monday morning, I woke up at 5:30 like I always did, made coffee and sat at the kitchen table. My wife was still asleep. I looked at the clock, 5:45, 6 o'clock, 6:15. I didn't know what to do with myself. My name is Robert. I'm 78 now. I spent most of my life waiting for retirement. I thought that's when my life would start. Turns out I had it backwards. I need to tell you what I learned, but it's going to sound simple. Maybe too simple. The kind of thing you hear and think you already know. But knowing it and living through it are different things entirely. I grew up in the 50s and 60s. My father worked in a factory. My mother stayed home with us. There were 4 of us kids. We weren't poor, but we weren't comfortable either. My father worked 6 days a week, sometimes 7. I remember him coming home, eating dinner, mostly in silence, then falling asleep in his chair with the newspaper on his lap. On Sundays, if he wasn't working, he'd tinker in the garage or mow the lawn. That was his life. When I was 17, he sat me down and told me to find a company with a pension. Work hard, he said. Keep your head down. Don't make waves. 30 years goes faster than you think, and then you can do whatever you want. That was the advice. That was the plan. I met Linda when I was 23. She was a secretary at the insurance company where I'd just started working. I was in the claims department. We got married in 1969. Small wedding, her parents, my parents, a few friends. We honeymooned in Niagara Falls for 3 days, then came back and moved into a 1-bedroom apartment. Linda wanted to travel. She had this idea that we'd save up and spend a summer in Europe, see Paris, Rome, London. She'd cut pictures out of magazines and put them in a folder. Someday, I'd say, when we have more money, when I get a promotion, when things settle down. We had our first child in 1971, Michael, then Sarah in 1974. The apartment got too small, so we bought a house in 1976. 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, a yard. The mortgage felt enormous. I took on overtime whenever I could. Linda stopped talking about Europe. The folder with the pictures went into a drawer somewhere. I worked and time passed. That's the best way I can describe it. I'd wake up, go to work, come home, have dinner, watch some TV, go to bed. Weekends were for yard work, errands, maybe a little league game or a dance recital. Summers we'd take the kids to a lake a few hours away and rent a cabin for a week. That was our vacation. I wasn't unhappy. I want to be clear about that. I loved Linda. I loved my kids. I was proud of the house, proud that I could provide. But I was always tired, always behind on something, always thinking about the next thing I had to do, the next bill I had to pay, the next problem I had to solve. And I'd think, when I retire, I'll rest. When I retire, Linda and I will take those trips. When I retire, I'll have time to read, to work on the house, to just be. Retirement was the finish line. Everything else was just getting there. Michael graduated high school in 1989, went to state college. Sarah graduated in 1992, went to a different school. Linda and I were alone in the house again. It felt strange at first, too quiet, too much space. But I still had work, still had the routine. I was in my mid-50s by then, counting down the years. Linda started talking about retirement too, what we'd do, where we'd go. She wanted to visit our kids more. Michael had moved to Colorado. Sarah was in North Carolina. She wanted to take that Europe trip, finally. She wanted me to teach her how to fish because I'd always said I loved fishing as a kid but never had time for it anymore. I'd say yes, absolutely, when I retire. It became my answer to everything. The company started changing in the late 90s, new management, restructuring. People I'd worked with for 20, 30 years were taking early retirement or getting let go. I kept my head down like my father taught me. I made it through, but the work got harder, more pressure, longer hours. I'd come home exhausted, barely able to keep my eyes open through dinner. Linda would ask me about trips we could take. I'd say I was too tired to think about it right now. We'd plan it later. When I retired, I turned 60 in 2007. 5 more years to go. The recession hit, and I watched my retirement account drop by almost 40%. I thought about working a few extra years to make up for it, but Linda said no. She said we'd be fine. We didn't need as much as I thought we did. She just wanted me to stop working so we could spend time together. But I kept thinking, just a little more, just to be safe, just to make sure we're comfortable. I retired in June 2011, 65 years old. 42 years at the same company. That first Monday, I sat at the kitchen table and didn't know what to do. Linda came down around 7. She asked if I was okay. I said I was fine, just adjusting. The first week I slept a lot. Caught up on sleep, I told myself. The second week I started small projects around the house, fixed a loose railing, cleaned out the garage, organized my tools. By the third week I'd run out of obvious projects. Linda suggested we take a trip, nowhere big, maybe visit Michael in Colorado. I said sure, but I wanted to finish a few things around the house first. There was always something. The gutters needed cleaning, the deck needed staining, the lawnmower was making a funny noise. Months went by, we didn't take any trips, we talked about them, but I'd always find a reason to delay. Too expensive, wrong time of year, better to wait until things settled down, except there was nothing to settle down from. I just didn't know how to stop waiting. I fell into a new routine. I'd wake up early, still 5:30, couldn't break the habit. I'd make coffee, read the newspaper front to back, watch the morning news. I'd do some project around the house or run errands. Afternoons, I'd watch TV or take a nap. Dinner, more TV, bed. Linda started going out more with her friends, book club, volunteering at the library. I think she got tired of asking me to do things and hearing me say maybe later. I told myself I was enjoying retirement. I was resting, relaxing, taking it easy after all those years of hard work. But the truth is I was bored, and I didn't know what to do about it. I didn't have hobbies, not really. I'd always said I'd get back to fishing, but when I actually thought about it, driving out to a lake, sitting in a boat for hours, it didn't appeal to me the way I thought it would. I'd built it up in my head for so long that the reality couldn't match. I'd said I'd read more, but I'd start a book and lose interest after a few pages. My mind would wander. I'd realize I'd read the same paragraph 3 times and still didn't know what it said. I'd said I'd travel, but planning a trip felt overwhelming and expensive, and Linda and I had settled into separate rhythms by then. It felt strange to suddenly try to do everything together when we'd spent years mostly parallel to each other. 2 years into retirement, Linda got sick, started feeling tired all the time. We thought it was nothing. She was getting older, we both were, but it didn't get better. She went to the doctor. Tests, more tests, ovarian cancer, stage 3. The next year was hospitals and treatments and side effects and hope and fear. I drove her to every appointment, sat with her during chemo, held her hand. We didn't talk much about the future anymore. We focused on getting through each day. She died in October 2014, 3 years after I retired. We never made it to Europe, never visited the kids as much as she wanted, never took that fishing trip. At the funeral, Sarah said something that stayed with me. She said, "Mum always talked about all the things you two were going to do someday." I think she really believed someday would come. After Linda died, the house felt enormous and empty. The kids wanted me to move closer to one of them, but I didn't want to uproot my life. This was my house. I'd worked for it, paid it off. It was supposed to be my reward, but I'd walked through it and realized I didn't really live in it. I slept in one bedroom, ate in the kitchen, sat in one chair in the living room. The rest was just space I heated and cooled and cleaned. I started thinking about all those years I worked. 42 years, I did the math once. If you count 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year for 42 years, that's over 84,000 hours. 84,000 hours in that building, at that desk, doing work that someone else is doing now, and probably don't even remember that I did. And what did I get? A pension that covers my bills. A paid-off house, some savings, a watch I never wore. I'm not saying it was worthless. I'm not saying I regret providing for my family, but I spent 42 years waiting for my life to start, and when it finally did, I didn't know what to do with it. And then the person I was supposed to share it with was gone. Here's the thing I didn't understand. Retirement isn't the reward. It's just more time. And if you don't know what you actually want to do with time, having more of it doesn't help. I thought I wanted rest. Turns out rest isn't a goal. It's a recovery. You rest and then you do something else. But I didn't know what the something else was. I'd spent so long defining myself by my work that when the work stopped, I didn't know who I was. I thought I wanted freedom, but freedom without purpose is just emptiness with options. I see people now, younger people, people in their 40s and 50s, and they're doing the same thing I did, working jobs they don't particularly love, telling themselves it's temporary, it's just until they can retire, postponing trips, hobbies, time with people they care about, saying someday, like someday is guaranteed. Let me tell you something about someday. It doesn't exist. There's only today. And if you're not living the life you want to live today, not someday today, then you need to ask yourself why. I'm not saying quit your job and live on a beach. I'm not saying don't plan for the future. I'm saying don't mistake the planning for the living. You know what I wish I'd done? I wish I'd taken that trip to Europe with Linda when we were 30 and broke. We would have figured it out. We would have stayed in cheap hotels and eaten cheap food, and it would have been an adventure. Instead, I waited until we could afford it properly, and we never went at all. I wish I'd left work at work. I wish I'd said no to some of that overtime and taken my kids camping more than once a summer. I wish I'd learned how to be present in my own life instead of constantly thinking about the next thing. I wish I'd asked Linda what she wanted, really wanted, and then done whatever I could to give it to her while there was still time. You want to know what retirement is like when you've spent your whole life waiting for it. It's quiet, really quiet. You have all the time in the world and nothing you particularly want to do with it. The projects run out, the naps stop feeling refreshing, the TV shows blur together. I'm 78 now. I'm healthy relatively. I could live another 10 years, maybe 15 if I'm lucky, and I have no idea what to do with that time because I never practiced. I never learned what I actually enjoyed, what gave me purpose, what made me feel alive. I was too busy working and waiting. So if you're watching this and you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, working a job and telling yourself you'll live your life after you retire, I need you to hear this. You won't. Not in the way you think. Because living isn't something you learn how to do after you stop working. It's something you practice every day, in small ways, in the middle of the regular stuff. It's taking the trip even if the timing isn't perfect. It's pursuing the hobby even if you're not good at it yet. It's spending time with people you love even when you're tired. It's saying yes to things that matter and no to things that don't, even if the things that matter don't pay you. Don't wait for retirement to spend time with your kids. They won't be kids when you retire. Don't wait for retirement to travel with your spouse. You don't know how much time you'll have together. Don't wait for retirement to learn who you are outside of your job. You need to know that before you retire, or you'll be lost. I'm not bitter. I want to be clear about that. I made my choices. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was being responsible. And maybe I was. But responsibility without joy is just a long, slow march toward an empty finish line. I see my kids now, they're in their 40s and 50s. They're busy, they're working hard, they're raising their own kids. And sometimes I hear them say the same things I used to say. When things settle down, when I get that promotion, when the kids are older, when I retire. And I want to grab them by the shoulders and tell them, things never settle down. There's always another promotion to chase. The kids grow up faster than you think. And retirement is just another day, except you're older and more tired and the person you thought you'd spend it with might not be there. But I don't say that because they have to learn it themselves, just like I did. Just like maybe you're learning right now. I still live in the same house. I still wake up at 5:30. I still make coffee and read the newspaper. But now I know what I'm doing. I'm passing time. I'm not living. I'm just here, waiting for nothing in particular. That's what happens when you spend your whole life waiting. You get good at it. So good that you don't know how to stop. If I could do it over, I'd work less. I'd worry less. I'd save less money and spend more time. I'd say yes to the things that scared me a little. I'd prioritize the people I loved over the career that forgot me the moment I walked out the door. But I can't do it over. None of us can. That's the whole point. So you have to do it now, not perfectly, not after you've saved enough or achieved enough or fixed enough. Now, today, this week, this year, take the trip, start the hobby, spend the evening with someone you love doing nothing in particular, say no to the overtime and yes to the thing that makes you feel alive, even just for an hour. Because retirement isn't the reward for a life well lived. A life well lived is the reward, and you can't postpone it until after you're done working. You have to build it into the work, into the regular days, into the ordinary moments that you think don't count. They count. They're all that counts. I'm 78 years old. I have a paid-off house, a decent pension, and more free time than I know what to do with. And I'd trade all of it for one more year with Linda where I actually showed up, where I wasn't too tired or too busy or too focused on Sunday. Don't be me. Don't wait. Don't assume you'll figure out how to live after you stop working. Figure it out now. Practice it now. Choose it now. Because someday isn't coming. There's only today. And it's already later than you think.